I just made matcha. I made some really good matcha. Stuff is good. I'm good at making matcha. I just have to say that. Okay, welcome back to the podcast. I'm really excited about this because we're back on video content here. If you listen to the, when was that? December 12th episode, I explained a little bit more about why last week's episode did not have any video content. Pre-recorded that and everything. If you're watching the YouTube video as well, you can see that I'm wearing the same outfit as I was in the last video episode because I'm recording these on the same day. So I'm doing a lot of pre-recording. I explained this in one of my other videos too, but I'm trying to record things ahead of time and get things ready to go over the holiday season because I know that I'm going to be busy. So this week we're going to be talking about the third intention that I had for the December series, and that's going to be talking about just the reflection on life and the reflection on the last year and what I've learned from that. So I have a little bit of an outline for this episode, but honestly it's a little bit less than I usually do, and it's going to be a little bit more just on the whim. We're just improvising as we go this time, and we're just going to be talking. So we're going to see how that goes, and I'm excited to talk about it. I think, oh goodness, it's like hard for me to even remember where I was a year ago. A year ago, I had taken a medical leave from college and was just about to start up again, and I was really terrified about it. I was just really struggling mentally and physically. I was just dealing with a lot of issues, and that really lasted the majority of the year, I think, until maybe like August or September, honestly. So it's only been recent where I feel like I am stable again and comfortable in who I am again. I've got my medical issues mainly under control at this point. My mental health struggles have been actually doing really well right now, and I'm seeing my therapist. I love my therapist. This is a plug to everyone to get a therapist. And yeah, I think it's just been a year of discovery, but not the entire year felt like that. I feel like overall the theme of this year was lost. Quite honestly, I think I was lost the majority of this year. And towards the end of it, I have been able to find and discover myself more. But I mean, to discover something, it has to be lost first, right? To discover something, you need to actually find it. And that's why I was lost, was because I hadn't found it yet. I knew that there was something that I was meant to be finding, which was even something as simple as the answers to my medical issues. But I hadn't found it yet. And so this entire year was a lot of just being up in the air, just trying new things, realizing what works for me and what doesn't, being in a lot of pain. And then it all kind of just came out in the end as like, okay, I found it. I feel peaceful again. I'm comfortable. And I feel like, I love that ended up being the end of the year, because I feel like that's such a good like closure to the year. Was like the beginning of the year was wild and crazy and I didn't know what I was doing, and then the end of the year is like, oh yeah, like, you know, I am comfortable right now. I feel okay and happy. But I also know that that's not always the way that life is. It doesn't always have a perfect closure. Life doesn't always have a perfect ending. And that can be really scary, and that can be really uncomfortable. But I think that's the thing that I've learned this year, is that you take it in baby steps. And a lot of times, time will just answer it for you. Time will just heal for you. And I know that's an answer that no one wants to hear, but yet accepting that has been one of the most important things that I've learned this year, as well as accepting my own emotions and the times that I struggle. I actually was recently diagnosed with OCD, a rumination type OCD, maybe a big part of why I'm an overthinker. And I usually don't struggle with it too much, but in the moments where I'm not doing great, it pops up a little bit more. And that is one thing that I've been learning, is to accept that that's who I am. Like, not to accept it in terms of like, this is how it's always going to be and there's no hope, but to accept like, yeah, I'm feeling this emotion right now and it's not great. And I'm going to keep going despite it. And I'm going to keep pushing. And I'm just going to keep being myself. And it usually with time goes away. So I think the biggest thing I've learned this year is that. And I'm honestly really grateful for it. In one of the last episodes, I think when I was talking about what this December series is going to be, I said that I write myself a letter every year on January 1st. And I've talked about it a little bit, but I want to talk about it a little bit more, because it is that reflection of looking back to where you were that's important. Like right now, I just reflected on where my life was a year ago, but it is a completely different thing to be reading an actual tangible letter that I wrote myself exactly a year ago. Like I wrote that to myself, wondering where my life was going to be and stating where my life currently was. Like those were my thoughts in that exact moment. And to me, that is something just so powerful to read and to see. Like I don't know, I just love it. And it makes me feel so grateful for the way that I am, the way that the life has turned, the way that I've learned things. And sometimes when I read that, I'm in a worse place. And sometimes when I read it, I'm in a better place. And sometimes when I read it, I don't feel like I've changed that much. But still reading that, there's always something that's changed. And there's always something that I try and be grateful for. So I might end up being a pretty short episode today, but honestly, that's what's been really helpful for me, is just really getting to reflect back on where was my life a year ago? Where was my life 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 5 years ago? You know, like, where was I? I was struggling so much. Like what? Let's see. It's going to be 2024. 5 years ago, I was struggling a lot versus today. You know, me 5 years ago didn't even know if I was going to make it to be able to go to college. Like I didn't even know if I was going to make it alive to be able to go to college. I didn't even know if I did make it alive, if I was going to be capable of going to college. I didn't even know if I made it alive, you know, if I did go to college or I did do some sort of other thing, you know. I had no idea that I would have this podcast and that I would have used my struggles from 5 years ago as a stepping stone to creating this. Like, I think there's something so powerful in seeing that life is such a journey and it's such a growth process. And it's incredible. And it's also painful and it's terrifying. But it's something that we all go through and we don't talk about very often, I feel like. I mean, when people ask me what I have a podcast on, I never know how to respond. Sometimes I just say wellness because it's the easiest thing, or life or something like that. But lately what I've been saying is it's a podcast dedicated to authenticity and showing people that no one has their life figured out. And that is when I get the most response. That is when people will be like, you know what? Amen to that. You know what? Like, that is so true. Because we all know it. We all know that none of us have our life figured out. None of us know what we're doing. You know, like, I might know what I'm doing in this exact moment, but like, in the whole concept of things, like, life throws you curveballs all the time. You know, I might feel comfortable right now, but give or take a few minutes and something is going to come up and I'm going to be like, oh, great. You know, now I have to deal with this. Like, I don't know what to do. You know, right now I'm apartment searching. I've never bought an apartment. The fact that I'm going to be buying an apartment, the fact that I'm going to be like living in like my own place, like what, like it's just so confusing. And it's like this, you know, you're getting thrown into adulthood and I don't even know where to begin with it. It's terrifying, but it's also like kind of exciting because I get to just exist. You know, when you stop thinking about life as this like, oh, you know, it has to be perfect, when you start realizing that no one knows what they're doing, somehow it kind of feels like an adventure. Somehow it kind of feels like, oh, you know, new thing to do. Let's do this. It's going to be exciting. And that doesn't always feel that way, but I think that it's been super helpful for me. So I guess, yeah, reflecting on this year, what has been helpful for me, what I've learned is this year, a year ago, I was in a lot of pain. Then a few months later, I started a podcast when I was sitting on the floor in so much pain, hurt, jet-lagged, and I had no idea what to do next. And I started recording, and from that, here we are. So I'm really grateful this year. I'm really grateful for everything I've learned, and I'm really excited to see what's coming next. And I do, you know, I don't make this episode to say like, oh, here's how great my life is, because it's not. But I say it to explain the importance of looking back on our lives and the importance of giving ourselves grace and being like, yeah, you know what, you did that. Like, good for you. You did that. Yeah. I'm proud of myself, and you should be proud of yourself too. So I urge you to also look back on where you were a year ago, look back on the things you've learned, look back on your habits. Is there something that you can change? Is there something that you could do better? Is there something that you have done better? What are you grateful for? What are you putting as intentions into the next year? I feel like that's really important, and I feel like we don't do that enough. So I'll see you next episode, which is going to be in January, which is crazy. And I forgot to mention it earlier. I'm posting this the day after Christmas. Like I said, I'm recording this ahead of time, so it feels weird to say this, but Merry Christmas to all who celebrate. I'll see you next time.